My name is Jonathan Mooney, and I am an author, inclusion and learning activist, and social entrepreneur. All of this professional work really comes from my own personal experience of struggling in school. I was the kid who had such a hard time sitting still in elementary school that I spent most of the day chilling out with the janitor in the hallway. I was the kid who had such a hard time keeping his mouth shut in middle school that I grew up on a first-name basis with Shirley, the receptionist in the principal's office. And I was the kid in high school who had such a hard time learning to read, and particularly a torturous time reading out loud, that I spent most of my high school experience hiding in the bathroom to escape reading out loud with tears streaming down my face. I didn't learn to read until I was 12. I couldn't read until I was 12 years old. Growing up, I had every label you could imagine. I was considered the at-risk kid, I was considered the bad kid, and eventually I became the special ed kid. I was diagnosed with dyslexia, or language-based learning disability, in 4th grade, diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, in 5th grade, and I dropped out of school for about a year and a half in 6th grade. That year, when I left school, 12 years old, I struggled with a number of mental health challenges, anxiety, depression, and I had a plan for suicide. I spent about a year and a half in and out of a variety of different educational settings, and when I finally returned to traditional school, I faced a lot of low expectations. I was told that I would flip burgers for a living, was told I'd be a high school dropout, and was told that I would most likely end up in jail or incarcerated. I went off to beat those odds. I went off to graduate from Brown University with an honors degree in English literature. Went off to be a writer, wrote my first book, Learning Outside the Lines, at the age of 21 at Brown, and went off to dedicate my professional life to building a more inclusive world for folks who live and learn differently. That fight to build a more inclusive world for cognitive and physical differences is really grounded in 3 core values. First and foremost, I believe fundamentally that people like me have been misunderstood and wrongly labeled. We aren't people with disabilities. We're people with differences who experience disabilities in environments that aren't built or designed to accommodate and include those differences. Let's take ADD as a good example. ADD is a difference in my life. It doesn't have to be a disability. There are good things about it, there are bad things about it. I'm not naive about the bad things that come with being ADD. I struggle with attention, I struggle with executive functioning. Don't let me do your taxes, right? Not a good use of my skill set, But there's a flip side to that coin. There's a lot of good things that come with those challenges. Good research shows that folks with ADD are more entrepreneurial than the general population, are better problem solvers. So it's a difference that becomes disabled by the way it was treated. ADD wasn't my disability. Being called the crazy bad kid and made to be in the hallway all day long, that was my disability. Same is true with my so-called learning differences. Dyslexia, good things about it, bad things about it. Not naive about the bad things. I struggle with reading. I spell at a 3rd grade level, but that's why God created spell check, right? There are good things that go hand in hand with those challenges. Creativity is correlated with learning differences, right? So dyslexia wasn't my disability. Being made to feel stupid, that's what disabled me. Growing up, read and C-spot run in the stupid reading group, disabled me. Being segregated from my peers and being tracked as the kid who was less intelligent, those were my disabilities. And in all of my travels around the country, when I talk to folks with a continuum of differences, whether it's learning, attentional, cognitive, physical, it's not the difference that really holds them back, it's the way the difference is treated. We have institutionalized ableism in our schools, work, and community, and that's what disables individuals, not the differences they live with. Second core value that animates my work is the idea that we shouldn't be spending all of our time trying to fix people. There is a remediation industrial complex out there that has a diagnosis and a treatment for every single human difference. All of our energy is spent trying to fix people opposed to the environments or context people find themselves in. But it's that change that's the most profound that can happen in somebody's life, in our communities, in our society. In my life, I didn't fix my dyslexia to go off to Brown. I accommodated that difference. You know, back in the day, it was a book on tape, right? It was so big, you had to put it in a backpack and plug it into a generator, right? But those accommodations allowed those strengths and talents to come to the forefront. Was a profound commitment embedded in the ADA and the IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, that it's not about fixing people, but building more inclusive environments that embrace and elevate cognitive and physical difference. Last and most importantly, core principle is this idea that every single human being, every person has a strength, gift, or talent. You know, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my mom. My mom was dismissed a lot in her life. She wasn't educated, she wasn't wealthy, she wasn't tall, she had this very high-pitched, funny voice that sounded like Mickey Mouse, so people didn't take her seriously, but people dismissed my mom at their own peril because my mom cursed like a truck driver. And if you were a principal or a teacher, you did not want cursing Mickey Mouse in your office. But that's where she was every day when things were going wrong for her son. Fighting for my right to be included in education, but also fighting for my right to have an education that wasn't just about fixing my problem, but also about helping me understand my strengths, gifts, and talents. I've spent the last 20 years of my life listening to stories of people who thrive living and learning outside the lines. And the one thing all those stories have in common is those are people who haven't fixed their problem, they've unleashed their gifts, and they've scaled their strengths, and they're building a life that's all about what is right with them, not what is wrong with them. And the last thing I want to say is running through all this work is a profound fight against the idea that there is a normal that we should enforce in our schools, in our culture, a normal mind, or normal body. I see my work as fighting against that, whether it's my book, The Short Bus, or my book, Learning Outside the Lines, or a nonprofit I founded called Eye to Eye. It's about reimagining what normal is. Because the reality is, the only normal people are people you don't know very well. Difference is paradoxically the norm, and the disability rights movement, the inclusion movement, is fighting for every single human being's right to be different.